up, everybody? It's Wednesday. It's Matt Therapy. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. I am Donna Gonzalez, your host, along with my partner in crime, Miss Bex and Violence, Becky Dominguez.
What's happening, everybody? Happy Hump Day.
Happy Hump Day. We got our super producer, Lee Syatt, on the ones and twos.
Hey, everybody.
And we also have a really special treat today. This is so cool. Straight from London, live, is a writer from Vice. His name is Andrew Nguyen. He trains at the Hydra Gracie West London Academy, and he has a really cool story about a woman who trains in secret in Iran. Hi, Andrew. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, how you guys doing?
We're doing great. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Great to be here, you know.
Thank you so much for taking time away from training. We know you had to skip training. It's 8 o'clock at night in London, right?
Yes, it's just past 8, yes. And it's the advanced class right now.
Oh, we're so sorry. Thank you so much. We are honored that you would skip training tonight to join us. How long have you been training at the Hydra Gracie studio?
About 2 years now, you know, 2 solid years. Just got my blue belt about a year ago, and right now still in the skill development phase, you know, as we all are, always.
Fantastic. And tell us a little bit about Hydra. He's one of the Gracies that I'm actually not familiar with.
Well, he's a 10 times IBJJF world champion, and
No big deal. Yeah, no big deal.
pretty good. I think he's the most accomplished Jiu-Jitsu competitor of all time by
No
titles.
kidding.
I think he's like, I know you guys are big on Nogi.
Yeah.
So I think his Nogi accomplishment was he won ADCC in 2005, I believe.
Ooh,
and he
that is a big
submitted
deal.
all 8 of his opponents by submission. The only
Wow.
person to ever do that, I think.
Wow,
So,
that is
holy
really
shit.
cool. And where does he fall on the Gracie lineage? Do you know? Like who's...
think Carlos is his granddad, and his mother was on the Gracie side, and his dad's Mauricio Gomez, fantastic instructor also.
Wow. Very cool. We'll have to talk to his cousin, niece, aunt, relative Rose, who's a friend of ours, and find out exactly. So, Andrew, tell us a little bit about Layla, the woman that you met who now trains in Iran. How did you meet her?
Well, I first met her. She was training at Rod Gracie Academy for a while, probably about 2 years ago, perhaps. First met her, and she trained there for a while as well. She had to go back to Iran now and again, and then she left towards the end of last year, I would say. And that was actually the last time I saw her was when she actually told me her story, and when she opened up a bit about sort of the difficulties she's having finding training partners there at the moment.
Yeah, I would imagine. So going back a little bit, in London, she was just, you know, a regular old professional woman who was able to come in and train with you guys, no sweat. Or did she come in with her head covered? Was she a practicing Muslim while she was training with you?
She is a practicing Muslim, I believe, and but when she left Iran when she was 12 years old, and I believe, and so she lived in the UK for most of her sort of adult life. So this is why going back to Iran was such a big culture shock for her.
I bet.
To go sort of from a woman who's sort of lived her whole social life as well in the UK.
Yeah.
Sure.
Back to Iran. She finds, when I spoke to her last in from calling when she was in Tehran, she was just that was one of the points. She's heavily stressed how much of a culture shock it was for her under sort of how guys view girls in that sort of situation, especially in a sort of training situation.
I can only imagine. So what belt was she when she left your academy?
She was a blue belt.
Okay, excellent. And she moved back to Iran with her family. Is that correct?
Yes.
Was that something she had planned on doing throughout? I mean, how come she moved back? Was there...
I believe her dad passed away. I want to say sometime last year, so she went back for a family funeral, and that was during that period that she lived in Iran. That was when she was finding it hard to find training partners.
Sure.
I bet.
To start off with. So when she came back to the UK for a while, and she desperately sort of sought out to find good training partners sort of via social media and via sort of what's their version of WhatsApp, as it were.
Okay. So now she's back in Iran.
Yes.
And what is her experience? So she has to train in secret. She's found a male training partner, or has she found any female training partners out there?
Well, the sort of how the situation is playing out is the person she trains with at the moment. I believe he's married to a woman who trains in judo, but he's sort of teaching her how to do jiu-jitsu as well. So eventually, she might start training with this person who trains jiu-jitsu, a woman,
They have
which would make it a bit more easy for her to do in public rather than sort of sneaking around. Right now, what her situation is that she has to sort of train in secret on the weekends with sort of a male grappler who's sort of going along with this, as it were.
Interesting.
It's
so
almost like a real secret fight club going on.
It
out
is
there.
a real secret fight club. So what are the circumstances? She has to go, and does she have to sneak into the gym, or do they have to make it seem like she's going to do a judo class, and then maybe they go off to the side and do a little jiu-jitsu training or drilling?
Well, they do it in the super, super early hours of the morning, so I'm told. So they found a gym owner who's sort of willing to sort of let them have the space, is willing to cooperate, as it were.
Interesting. And is it dangerous for her to do this? Like, what would happen if she were discovered training, especially with a male training partner?
So yeah, when I asked her, she was sort of half defiant and laughing about it. She said that most of the time it's such a corrupt country, how she framed it, and they would take her to the police station, and she would probably have to pay a fine of some sort just to bribe them off, definitely, and write a declaration that she'll never practice anything that's sort of immoral again.
Wow. So is it
get let off with a warning that time?
Interesting. Is it immoral that she's training, or is it in their eyes, or is it immoral that she's training with a man?
I imagine all of it.
I would say with a man in the setting,
So would it be more acceptable if she did have a female training partner?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
It would be or it would be in all women, I guess, and they will be covered.
Interesting.
Not the face, but just the hair.
So they could wear gis, and then the cover. What's the name of the cover that they wear on their head?
Hijab, I think.
A hijab, yes. So they could wear hijabs and then their gis and train legally.
Yes.
Okay.
So she was telling me how she was talking to a sort of male grappler who's sort of head of a certain federation, and for her to sort of get a license to teach jiu-jitsu, even though it was super early in her sort of development for just in terms of Brazilian jiu-jitsu, she could sort of pay to get a sort of fake certificate just for certification, so she could teach, I guess.
Has she considered recruiting other women to train with her? Is it realistic?
Is it acceptable for a woman to be able to learn how to defend herself and to be even against other women? If she had a group of women that she could teach, is that acceptable out there?
Yes, I think there's certain disciplines that are very for women that are sort of okay, as it were. Just like she's mentioned certain. I think she's a black belt in Kyokushin karate as well.
Oh, cool.
Wow.
So she could start a karate school for women.
Yes, yeah. She went to a karate school in Iran when she was younger. So the sort of contact sports in that setting is okay.
Is okay. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But when it gets a bit more physical,
that's where the issues come in. Yeah. It's the actual contact. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes.
Interesting. So what else has she said about the culture shock that she's experiencing going from a place like London, which is, very cosmopolitan and, you do what you want. And
nobody.
Yeah. What has she said about her experience moving to a place that is ruled by Sharia law?
Well, I think she just finds the worst thing that she finds is people's attitude towards her. It's totally changed, just like in sort of everyday life, where people, she says that in London people don't mind where you go, what you do, whereas in Iran everyone cares intensely about what you're doing.
It must be a real culture shock, and I know she grew up there, but it must be a culture shock to go from just to not even the jiu-jitsu, but to not be able to do whatever you want. Like when in the world we live in, we can do. There's some limitations,
Sure.
but the majority of our lives we could do anything, and just to think about having to go somewhere very early in the morning to do a martial art or whatever you want to call it. It's something that I don't even think a lot of our listeners are going to be able to fully. It's almost like when like the Jews were in like having to practice their religion. It's really a weird concept to think about.
I agree. Yeah. It's a weird concept, and it also, for me, it really stood out because she's a woman. So I felt a definite kinship to her when I read your story, Andrew, and it made me angry, especially like I guess as a tough lady who's like, you can't tell me what to do. I'm gonna go do jujitsu if I want to do jujitsu, and it made me angry for her that like this is something, it's her passion
that this exists in the world.
And then at the same time I got all, you go girl, like you don't let anybody tell you can't train jujitsu, you go do that in secret and you go find yourself a partner to do those arm bars with.
How are you in contact with her? Are you calling her? Like, is her family okay with this, or is this entire thing like under the radar? That her family doesn't even know about it.
No, her family do know about it, and we sort of have like the sort of jiu-jitsu. She's still in contact with people that I know from jiu-jitsu as well, you know. So there's still like a big kind of social thing going on still.
Is she able to come visit
like
you guys?
WhatsApp, instant messaging, and sort of social media stuff.
Oh, so she has access to the internet where she is
yes.
that allowed? Is that cool?
Yes.
Oh, that's cool.
Is there any concern about I know you mentioned in the article about encrypted private messaging, and that's you guys communicate that way, and probably I'm sure she's learning things that way as well via videos or whatever.
Ooh, yeah.
Is there any concern of any authorities finding out that way? I mean,
Well, so the last time I spoke to her when she was in London, she talked about how she would use certain instant messaging apps, I believe, but they would switch around because certain ones they knew were leaking messages to the government just about petty crimes that people were doing, you know. So if they were just ever talking about anything like to do with jiu-jitsu, for example, they would use certain instant messaging apps which they knew were encrypted. So I believe Telegram was one she mentioned, for example.
So she's not able to say go on YouTube and watch a tutorial. Does she have access to that?
Oh yes. I think that's how. I think in most of the world that's how they supplement their sort of the lack of general
actual training
knowledge, just sheerly through YouTube videos.
I do a podcast, and we had Frank Mir on the other day. He's Cuban, cool. and so is the co-host of the host of the other podcast, and he was saying that he has family in Cuba that even though they don't have cable and they don't have internet, they figured out ways to pirate the signal for some of like the UFC. So they might have only one TV, but they'll like the whole city will go and watch with them.
That's so cool.
Wow,
that's very cool.
Hey,
is your co-host, by the way? Is that Joey Diaz?
Yeah.
The one and only.
We get him over here as well.
Oh, cool. Yeah, no, he's it's and that's another. It's Cuba. There's not many places in the world that are like that.
Yeah.
But it's like, so were you? Because I haven't had a chance to read the article yet. Were you just friends and then you decided to write an article, or how did this all come about?
So yeah, essentially we were talking for quite some time, just on her last day actually, and she just was just telling the whole story, and I just kept asking her more questions about it, and I thought it would make a great article, perhaps, you know. And as time went on, then I reached out to her brother, who trains Jiu-Jitsu as well, and so he put me back in touch with her, and we just got the ball rolling from there.
That's interesting because she comes from, it sounds like, maybe a bit of a conservative background. If how did she find her way into the sport? Do you know?
I think she just had this sort of a deep passion for martial arts in general, because she had always had that karate background.
Mm-hmm.
She trains. She's very sort of intensely aware of the sort of physical states of all times. So she practices yoga and she's into mindfulness. And I think just that sort of relationship that she has with keeping fit, as it were, as a spiritual exercise, sort of led to her doing jiu-jitsu.
This is a strong woman
Yeah.
to be able to practice these things and live still with the restrictions she's living with.
Right.
Oh,
Speaking of Sharia law,
amazing.
do you know, could you explain to everybody at home who aren't familiar with it, maybe just a bit of an overview of the rules that the people in Iran are living under right now?
Well, I think after the Iranian Revolution in 1979, there was sort of cultural change where they brought in Sharia law under the Ayatollah Khomeini, and sort of one sort of specific part of that sort of lends itself to jiu-jitsu was the idea of sort of sex segregation within a certain context, sort of within public especially, sort of governing their behaviors between the sexes.
Mm-hmm.
When you knew she was moving back, was she worried about this? Like, what was her? Like, was she worried about having to deal with it, or was she just used to it?
It's hard to say. I think when she went back for the first time, I think she sort of was able to prepare herself mentally to going to live back there again full time.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm sure it's a big culture shock, and she says her plan isn't to live there full time. You know, her plan is to save a lot of money and then go to Brazil, train, get a black belt, and
That's awesome.
travel the world.
Wow, that's really cool. I hope she's able to do that.
What has the response been from the rest of the jiu-jitsu community? Because obviously Donna reached out and it's huge, but jiu-jitsu is a uniquely supportive community. So once you put up the article, what has the response been?
Well, I didn't actually know the article went out. I was training jiu-jitsu, and a friend of mine, he said, you know, I saw your piece on Reddit, it's blowing up. You know, I was like, what piece? I don't know what you're talking about. And the piece was up there, and I was just looking at the Reddit comments, they're hilarious, you know, but,
Right.
you know.
What were some people saying on Reddit?
Few of the comments were more towards the sort of commentary on sort of how it is difficult to train jiu-jitsu in Iran, for sure. So most of the comments tended towards how lucky we are, essentially, in our sort of in the UK and in the US to be able to liberally train.
Yeah,
jiu-jitsu.
especially when, you know, you can go into any academy and train with any person of any color, sex, shape, whatever. You're just like, hey, I love the sport. You want to do it with me? And they're like, yeah,
Let's do it.
So is jiu-jitsu your first martial art, Andrew?
I would say so. Well, I got into MMA first, and then I was sort of training some no-gi in terms of jiu-jitsu grappling and just sort of dabbling with sort of Muay Thai, but nothing too serious. And then eventually when I settled in London, it was jiu-jitsu for sure. I mean, I got into it just watching, I think, GSP back in the day.
Right.
Just beat Dan Hardy and got him in the armbar, Kimura.
Dan
But
Hardy! Yeah!
just looked, it was interesting what he was doing. You know?
Yeah. I remember that. That's when he was training here at 10th Planet. And we had Dan Hardy was. And we had a huge crowd of people that went to go cheer him, and we were in a bar, and there was a big crowd of people that were going for GSP, and the whole bar they were like GSP, and then we were in the back, we were like Dan Hardy, and it was just like one of these really cool moments. And then you know how jiu-jitsu brings people together.
UK, in LA, you know,
for sure. Have you had a chance to train with Dan, speaking of?
No, I haven't seen him. He trains in the sort of more of the Midlands near Nottingham.
Yes, isn't that where he's from?
Yes.
Cool. So you've trained both gi and no gi. And we've been having a bit of a discussion you might have heard in our last podcast that Becky brought up, which was there are a lot of people that think that gi jujitsu is
not jujitsu.
No.
I'm sorry.
Yes. Gi jujitsu is what is real jujitsu,
right.
and no gi doesn't qualify as jujitsu. It's submission grappling or whatever you want to call it, but it's not.
But it doesn't fall under jujitsu.
Yes. So what is your personal opinion on that?
Do you have an opinion on that?
Jiu-jitsu is just grappling, you know. That's just we have like 2 arms and 2 legs. It's the same thing. I mean, no-gi grappling is definitely jiu-jitsu. It's definitely Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
Does the attire change the name? That's basically, I mean, what it comes down to is like having
semantics at the end of the day when you get to this point. We
Sure.
love grappling.
Sure.
Do you feel that this is the first time I've ever had the chance to talk to somebody in another country besides Brazil, or maybe Mexico. Do you feel that we are part of a global community? Like, I feel a kindredship towards you because, like, you do jujitsu, and we might not have anything else in common, but we have this thing, and that connects us.
Oh, definitely. The wrestling coach was saying, you know, these cauliflower ears are passports around the world. It's like,
Right.
You see someone with cauliflower ears, it's like that dude probably does jiu-jitsu as well, and you've been through the same.
You probably don't want to mess with that person.
But you could have a good conversation with them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was queuing the other day, and there was a guy with cauliflower ears standing in front of me. I was like, "You train jiu-jitsu, don't you?" He was like, "Yeah." And we started talking about jiu-jitsu. Just random dude I've never met.
That's so awesome. And he trained in London?
Yeah, he trains in Checkmat.
Oh, cool. How many? Okay, so in Los Angeles, I don't know if you know this, but you could like throw a stick and hit 3 jiu-jitsu academies. There's
sure.
tons of them out here.
For
Is
sure.
London like that? Are they everywhere?
I wouldn't say they're everywhere. There's a few really great academies, and then there's smaller academies sort of dotted around between them.
Mm-hmm.
But sort of not too many, you know, not too many.
Is Hydra the only Gracie out there?
No, there's Carlson Gracie as well.
Oh, no kidding. I did not know that.
Yeah, really close to us as well.
Cool. Are there different, I know there's Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, so do they both teach Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, or do they have their own, like, does that fall under Gracie Baja? I really don't know any of this. I'm sorry if anybody's like,
Well,
you suck.
I think Gracie Baja, there's just loads of Gracie Bajas out there.
Right.
All the world, and there's several within London, and the Carlson Gracie sort of, I think, is a sort of from that lineage back to Carlson Gracie.
Sure.
So they're affiliates, and we do have a 10th planet in there. London as well.
Is it a hot box, or is it an actual moon? You have a legit 10th planet school out there?
10th planet Limehouse. I do believe it's legit. I do believe.
Awesome. Yay. I did not know that. That's awesome. Do you ever go train with those guys? You should.
I haven't yet, but I do want to one day. I'll go to the open mat, you know.
You totally should. Yeah. You should be like, hey, I talked to your 10th planet sisters on Skype, Donna and Becky. They're from HQ. They said I should come see you. So when do you think...
Hit me up, people at 10th Planet Limehouse.
Totally. Your Twitter handle is @AndrewGJJ. So people can find you on there and, like, say what's up. So what is your personal opinion? Like, what is your personal definition of martial arts? I got into a big Twitter conversation with somebody about that, and everybody seems to have a different opinion on what makes martial arts. And so what is martial arts to you?
I in my opinion, I think it's all about sort of perfecting techniques, and sort of the idea that you're putting 100% of your effort just to perfect specific techniques that would it improves yourself when you sort of work on something to your fullest potential. You try your absolute hardest to perfect just anything in life, and martial arts is one avenue that we go down to sort of attain this. You'll never actually get to perfection, but it's sort of the idea of almost reaching perfection.
I like it.
That's martial arts.
I like it.
I think part of the argument last week that, and I think that's what was the Twitter argument the other day, or discussion, not an argument, but was more. I think what she was mentioning was the mentality behind it. That
for those who don't know what we're talking about, Colleen Schneider, who was our guest last week, had her opinion is that people who only do sport jujitsu
or sport judo or sport
whatever,
taekwondo, whatever.
Sport taekwondo, that it's maybe a different sector, not quite a martial art, or she doesn't consider them martial artists because she considers them athletes. Do you make that differentiation? And not everybody gets to have Colleen's opinion because not a lot of people get to practice on the level that she does, which is on a professional stage.
I feel like she had a good argument that it's the mental state and how you take wins and losses.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
I think if you don't know how to take a loss like a good sportswoman,
sure,
that's
absolutely
what takes away from being a martial art in a sense. You should.
Yeah.
I don't have an opinion on it, but just because I don't have enough background on it. But what I think Colleen would say is, and I just don't want to say the wrong name. What's our friend in Iran's name? What are we calling her?
Layla.
I think even Colleen would say Layla is a martial artist. Like she's not doing it to work out. So it doesn't even. I don't think it matters the intensity. According to her, I think it more mattered the reason behind doing it was important. Because I don't know. I mean, I don't know why that would be important. Maybe it's because if you're just doing it to lose weight, maybe you're not as committed to it.
Sure.
But that seems
so more of like as a love for the sport.
The love, or just like your
commitment.
personal reasons for going. I think
and
that's what I took away from it.
Mat therapy is such a perfect name.
I agree.
Sorry, I got cut for 1 second.
It's okay.
That's why mat therapy is such a perfect name for a podcast, because like we all have that itch, just outside of life, just to go train. It just helps us deal with outside life,
Absolutely, it makes you a better person.
All the time. We just kind of want to go train, and it just helps us like smooth out any kind of mental wranglings you might be having. Your mind's clear after you train. And it's therapy, mat therapy.
It really is.
100%. I was actually, on Monday night, I was thinking of what a perfect name it was because of that. I was kind of, Monday all day, I was kind of in a funk all day and like I don't know, I wasn't thinking straight. And I finally went back to training. I had to take almost 4 weeks off. And I went back, and by the end of it, I was like, what were my problems? What was I upset about?
Right.
I forgot. It didn't matter anymore. I felt so much better.
Yeah.
So...
I agree. It's absolutely therapy. You cannot be mad after you've either, when you are just focusing on, I either have to choke this person out or armbar them, or I need to stop
survive
myself from getting all those things happen to me. You can't think about anything else.
Absolutely. And sort of as humans, we're not kind of meant to be sat at a desk with our hands in
Amen.
this position all day, like just evolutionary speaking,
Yeah.
We're supposed to be sort of doing movement,
active,
physical
moving
activity.
Around.
Yeah.
This is part of living, That's why it just changes, the game changer.
Absolutely.
After you train Jiu-Jitsu mentally.
How long have you been a journalist?
Almost 3.5, 4 years now.
Okay, so you've had equal time being a journalist, not doing jiu-jitsu, as you have doing it. How have you noticed it's affected your work and the way you write and the way that you present things to the world?
Well, if someone's trying to choke you from when they've got your back or they've got you in full mount, writing articles, no problem. I'll churn out as many articles as you want. Writing articles is
the easiest thing ever. Do you notice it yourself changing the way you deal with people, like things that you're like, that would bother me, but I can choke you out if I want to, so I don't care.
Well, it does. It gives you a certain perspective on life. It keeps your mental health good, just to get your physical exercise out in the gym. When you're walking around in life, that you might get angry just commuting every day to work, for example, but like you just understand that it's just life,
right?
There are techniques for you to help you get through this. That's what learning martial arts is all about. You develop your techniques and they'll help you get through life.
For sure.
And same with writing, same with any avenue in life. If you just work on a certain craft, you perfect it. It's all hard work. It'll pay dividends in the end.
Do you find yourself working jiu-jitsu references into your writing?
I haven't yet. I actually haven't. I want to there's not many berimbolo references
Right.
you can get to or not.
You totally should. You should be like, and this politician went for the proverbial takedown and really just put this other person in a rough
And just
guillotine.
berimboloed the world.
And I bore people at work endlessly just with just jiu-jitsu talk, or they have no interest in jiu-jitsu whatsoever.
Oh, how dare they?
man.
Did anyone see Conor McGregor? No. Oh, okay.
Like who? Who is that?
So, since you brought him up, what are your thoughts on UFC 200 and this whole Conor McGregor, Dana White
Shenanigans.
battle or whatever?
I mean, they should just let him fight. Definitely. He's put in solid hours for the UFC, and he's put his body and health on the line just fighting for them. That should be sort of payback enough as it is. I mean, yes, there's a contract in place, but
There's gray areas.
I don't think they ever wanted him to fight. I'm not going to guarantee it. I don't think they would. Because why? If they wanted him to fight, they would let him fight. There's no rules. Dana could let him fight. I think they wanted John Jones and Daniel Cormier. I don't think they at all wanted.
You think this was a big master plan to put John Jones on the 200 card?
You know what?
As long as John Jones won, yeah.
That's kind of interesting when you think about the timing of this whole. It was only a couple weeks ago that John Jones and Daniel Cormier were supposed to be fighting this past weekend, and that fell apart.
Hey,
and then all this happened. So that's
it
good
protects
point.
Conor McGregor, so he doesn't lose anything.
Right.
If he loses to Nate Diaz again, that's pretty much
true.
it. He has to go back to the featherweight division, and his sort of reputation as this incredible martial artist who's able to go up and down and talk a great game is sort of finished.
Yeah,
But if they take him off and they just make him go back to the featherweight division now, as it were.
because it doesn't make sense to me. All of his talking forever has always been on fight anyone, anywhere, and for a marketing issue to be the reason why he doesn't fight. It doesn't make it. That's why I think.
Well,
it's
he
all a
can't
scam.
he can't come in talking all that trash because his trash is I'll fight you anywhere and I'll beat you and I'll blah 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 blah. But then he lost, so either he comes in and was like, yeah, I lost, but I'm gonna come back. You think I'll make the same mistakes? Blah 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 blah. Or he has to completely come up with a whole new persona for that specific fight.
But there's been rematches that people talk shit, and
Of course.
they get the rematch. And I mean, look at John Jones, Daniel Cormier, for instance. He still comes in talking shit even though he lost.
The UFC might just have the most genius marketing team that all of us don't know about. That they're like, we're going to get everybody talking about it. The 400 podcasts that talk about MMA, we're going to get all of them talking about it. This is going to, blow up the internet. And they still win because we'll all tune in for any of those fights.
Oh, yeah. I thought
Do
it was...
you guys think it's a better main event? UFC 200 with John Jones
That's
and Daniel
another one.
Cormier?
Oh, okay, so...
That's another one that I'm just kind of like, I'm tired of
I'm tired of hearing about it. And this whole time, I've actually been a Cormier fan. Like, yeah, he always takes the high road, blah, 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 blah. And then he said something. I don't know if you guys caught it in the commentary right after the Jones OSP fight. And he said, oh, yeah, he was a little rusty, and I wish that had been me in there in the cage with him. And
that John Jones was rusty?
Yeah, and then Cormier was like, I wish that had been me that is in there with him while he was rusty. And I'm like, that's not what a champion says. A champion's like, no, I want him at his best, and I want to beat him at his best. And Cormier's like, yeah, no, I totally wanted him when he was, off his game and weak. What?
I think that from what I saw from this past weekend, that I think there was a part of John Jones's mind that was like not really into it. Maybe.
Yeah, that's
that he was like
sure.
it. Like that. Obviously, when they gave him the belt, he said, "Here, I don't want this. I want the real belt," or something like that.
Yeah.
I think that it was more of a, all right, I'm doing this because I need to, because it was already scheduled, know. But I don't think he was totally there.
It was so. Did you catch that, Andrew? When Cormier said that, am I the only one that was like, did he just say that?
I didn't hear it.
Oh, I did. It was at the end. They were doing like an interview after.
I was like, I'm not.
Now, Andrew, what is
Wait, I want to hear. Andrew, did you catch it?
Well, what DC said about John Jones at the end?
Yeah.
No, I missed it. I only read about it on Twitter afterwards.
Yeah. Well, what was your reaction? Did you have the same reaction I did?
Well, DC's, I don't know. He's the mental game has affected him. In this, John Jones is he's got to him, you know.
Yeah,
DC.
I agree.
Of course.
I think that John Jones has gone into DC's head. Whoa, show. What was your question?
My question was still UFC based, but it's something different. Americans don't really have the sort of connection to American fighters that I think a lot of international fans do.
Right.
Like
the pride.
So what is it like? Did you go to that last Anderson Silva fight against Bisping, or like what is it like when you see like a UK person fighting?
Well, those tickets, they sold out incredibly quickly, so I'm told, without anyone knowing what the main event was. So I think we were just so desperate to see a UFC event, just generally, just across the board. We just want to see a UFC fight live.
Yeah,
in
you
the
don't
UK.
get. Yeah,
They don't tell you who the main card is when they put their tickets on sale out there?
We knew Bisping was on the card, so we were told it might be Bisping, might be Musasi.
Oh.
Well,
but they just don't get very many fights, so
that's true.
They jump on it when they can.
But in terms of rooting for a British athlete, definitely, for sure, the British fans do get behind the athletes.
I would imagine.
Anthony Joshua, I don't know if you guys are into boxing.
A little bit.
I was at the Anthony Joshua fight. He's a heavyweight British champion now, and the atmosphere was incredible to see him just win by knockout live.
It seems like British or European fans in general get so much more amped up about their teams and their sports and their representatives than, I mean, I guess Americans do, but like when Europeans fight, like they come out here in droves and they bring drums and they have those chants that you use in football games, and it's crazy. Is it like that at home, like all the time, just on a general, like, hey, it's Tuesday and there's a football game and we're just going to freak out?
Oh, for football, I'm sure.
Pretty much, because it is the football atmosphere.
Yeah.
I mean, you kind of get it in Brazil as well. When you see the UFC events, they're always chanting. They've got their chants. And when you go to sort of any sort of live events in the UK, mostly football games or soccer games, there's that type of chant you'll hear.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I mean, even I was at the Jose Aldo Conor McGregor one in December in Vegas, and I swear all of Ireland was there.
For sure.
All of
Well, there's
Ireland.
only what, like 1,200 people that live there total?
Yeah, about 1,100 of them were there.
Hey, Andrew, how does Jiu-Jitsu affect your love life?
Oh, it's fantastic. I had Jiu-Jitsu sex talk.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what are your... So after the podcast last week, think about your sex Jiu-Jitsu tips. We got a text from Josh Barnett, Colleen's boyfriend, and he's like, here's my take on sex Jiu-Jitsu. Josh Barnett says, if you have the leg elevated, you could always just switch to a knee bar if you needed to. Or in missionary, if you needed to, you could go toe hold. If you needed to tap your partner out. So what
he's the grappling master,
right? I mean, if Barnett says you can do that, then
hey, I'm not arguing with him.
So what arguing with me?
What are your sex jiu-jitsu tips, Andrew?
Sex jiu-jitsu tips, just work on that heavy hip pressure.
Oh, there you go.
Heavy hip pressure, but like controlled as well. Don't be an animal,
Right.
Your Twitter's gonna go crazy now. You're gonna get all.
Position before submission, as our good friend Alder Hampel likes to say.
Oh my God.
So, sex jiu-jitsu talk. That's how we roll around here. How often do you get to talk to Layla? And if any of the people listening today want to maybe reach out to me and send her a message, she can receive emails, or do they is there any protocol that we need to follow in sending her a message or anything?
I think if you can definitely send messages through me, and I'll definitely pass them on to her for sure, and I'll talk to her about if there's any kind of avenues where if she wants to open up a bit more about it, or just what the situation is for her.
That would be really cool. And Andrew responded to my email right away. I sent an email to, is it not your publisher, your what's the word?
Editor.
I sent an email to the editor at Vice, and immediately they both responded. And I thought that was so cool that that both of you responded within like 24 hours. That was really cool. So did you get a chance to watch EBI this weekend?
I didn't, unfortunately. I've just saw the results. Gordon Ryan
came in
with like 2 weeks notice.
Yeah, 2 weeks notice. Total. I mean, I guess not a dark horse for him and the people that he trains with, but I don't think anybody was expecting him to win that I talked to.
Well, especially in an absolute division.
Yeah. I mean, there were some monsters in that division. So mad props to Gordon Ryan. If you haven't watched it, go to Fight Pass. Do yourself a favor. Watch that. Watch the show.
Watch
EBI.
the whole card.
Yeah, watch
there
the
were
show.
Some good
and
matches.
We have a tradition, or is that what it's called? We like to spotlight a lot of ladies around here since it's Mat Therapy and there are lady hosts. So I've talked about her before. She's my hero. This girl is the absolute future of jiu-jitsu. If you don't know who Grace Gundrum is, go look this girl up. She's 13 years old. We have the rare opportunity to see her a lot since she's in the 10th Planet system, and she's put on 20 pounds in the last year. Did you know that?
No.
I talked to her mom.
Well, I mean, she's 14?
Growing. Yeah, she's growing. She's a 13-year-old girl. This is not weird news. But she trains 8 hours a day. She homeschools with her family, and because she was bored at school. She's that smart. She's like, meh, not for me. So she homeschools with her mom, Mary Jo, who's awesome, who has 4 kids that she caters to all of their different sports needs. One of them's a dancer. One of them's a football player. I can't remember what. I think the oldest sister plays softball. Like, Mary Jo is a super mom. Caters to all her kids' sports. Caters to Grace and her jiu-jitsu. Travels all over so Grace can compete. And this girl gets up in the morning, does her schoolwork, goes and trains for 3 hours or 2 hours in the morning, however long that class is, comes home, does whatever she needs to do, goes back and trains for another 4 to 5 hours. She trains 8 hours a day. She's living the life that all jiu-jitsu people wish we could live.
We all dream of that.
And every single time she steps on the mat, she puts on a high level competition. She will bring an entire theater full of adults to their feet screaming.
That's like if you had to pick one match to watch on all of EBI, it's always Grace Gundrum's.
Grace. She not to spoiler alert, she finished her match with a dead orchard, which is not an easy submission to finish. It's basically a triangle with 2 arms in, and then you do an arm bar on both of those 2 arms, and it is insanity. And Grace is,
and she set it up beautifully.
She's a badass. She's super calm. I
dream of hitting dead orchards.
I dream of being Grace. A couple weeks ago, there were a bunch of the young teenagers visiting 10th Planet HQ, and Eddie, it was Korosek and Grace, and then our guy Derek that always trains with us, and Eddie, because if you watched EBI 5, you'll notice that heel hooks are no longer legal for kids because one of the girls got hurt last time, and they just feel like there's maybe a maturity issue, and a lot of people asked for that specific move to be taken out, so they did. And Eddie looks at Grace and he goes, "Are you upset that heel hooks are not legal anymore?" And she just had, if you've ever seen Grace, she like stone face all the time, and she was basically like, no, and like the look on her face was basically like, I'm just gonna win however you tell me.
Then I'll just win with something else.
She was like,
then I just won't do it. I'll just.
Are you familiar with Grace Gundrum, Andrew?
Yes, I've seen the pictures of her, and she looks good. Asian.
You're like, yeah. She's awesome. Yeah, she's who we all hope to grow up and dream to be. And I could not be more of a fan of her if I tried.
Do you guys train, whereabouts do you guys train? Which 10th Planet do you guys train at?
Headquarters with Eddie Bravo.
Oh, great, fantastic.
Yeah,
and
downtown LA.
What's it like to train out there, sort of, what kind of instruction do you get,
Have you ever watched any of Eddie's videos?
Yes, it's fantastic.
That's exactly what he's like all the time.
That's awesome.
Listen to him on a podcast or on some other show and listen to the things he talks about. We usually get those stories too in class.
Yeah, and I must have been training with him too long, because a lot of his theories, I'm like, that sounds completely reasonable, Eddie Bravo. I'm on board with you. Maybe not like 100% on board, but when he puts his arguments up, I'm like, all right, that's cool.
Our evening classes start at 8:30 at night, and we usually don't get out of there until about 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And most people outside of us look at me like, what? Why are you? You're like, there that late and that long? I'm like, really? Is that late? Is that long?
Yeah.
But then I break it down. I'm like, well, you need some time for story time.
We get story time. I don't know if other jiu-jitsu instructors give you guys story time. Like, I don't know if Hydra comes in with his latest theory on, I don't know, whatever. But we get
He's a pretty chill dude.
we get a good 20 minutes of Eddie Bravo story time, which has
conspiracy theories,
all of it, you name it. And I have to say, as a person that's trained with him for quite a long time, that's like, he's toned it down. When he was first starting out, and there was 20 of us at 10th Planet, we got like a half hour to 45 minutes of story time before every class.
I was gonna say, were classes back then like 3.5 hours, or was there just no instruction?
Look,
Jiu-Jitsu instruction.
Aside from a few guys that were maybe married or had other responsibilities, we were all very young, and like this was our thing, or we all had Hollywood type jobs that worked around this schedule.
Yeah.
So being at the gym until midnight was
no big deal.
That's what we did. We hung out.
Yep.
I remember forgetting something at the gym, and it was a gym that a lot of fighters lived in. They had like a dorm situation. So I went back, and I knew I could get access. I went back like at 12:30 thinking, oh, I'll just call somebody, have them come and let me in and sneak in and grab what I need to grab. No, there was still a whole bunch of dudes hanging out.
Oh, you didn't have to worry about sneaking
in. No, the door was open. They were like, hey, what's up? And there were like 3 guys standing outside, and there were like 4 guys standing inside. So yeah, back in the day, it was basically like a college
I feel like
dorm situation was the best way I could describe it.
Aside from nobody actually living there now, it's still kind of the other day I didn't leave till almost midnight.
Yeah.
Because everybody was outside talking.
What's it like training at Hydra Gracie's? Tell us about the studio and the students there.
Well, it was mainly gi grappling for the most part. And there are a lot of killers in that gym. I mean, we do wrestling classes as well. The wrestling culture is amazing. And there's no gi classes as well, but predominantly most of the competitors tend to do gi competitions for gi grappling, and we have like there are great competitors out there. Muji, Joe, shout out, and the level of competition in the academy itself is extremely high, so it does help you build your technique incredibly quickly, and the techniques that they do show us are incredibly tight, for sure.
For sure. Who is the wrestling coach there? What's his background? Is he a fighter? Is he like a Roman Greckler? Is he a Greckler? Roman Greco.
So I think he's from Bulgaria. Lyubov,
wow.
I believe his name is pronounced, and he's a 4-time national Bulgarian champion. And,
what?
I think he was but I think in Bulgaria that is incredible because wrestling for them is everything.
I feel like that's like
he trained in
beast.
I think it was 1 year below Daniel Cormier at in Colby.
Stop! That's awesome. Wow. Are you familiar with Turkish oil wrestling?
Or did you catch that last week?
Yeah, I've seen that recently on the Joe Rogan podcast.
He was talking about it too?
Everyone, the world's talking about it.
The world's talking about it.
How can you not?
Right. So would you or would you not participate in a Roman oil wrestling match?
Depends on how high it was,
How much weed is there?
Yeah.
So you're a Joe Rogan fan?
Oh yes, I think most people in the academy are they kind of got into jiu-jitsu via Joe Rogan somehow or other. He had a hand to play in it.
Really?
Definitely. And he's great. Definitely.
He's got to be the biggest jiu-jitsu ambassador in the world.
Pretty much, I think so. Eddie Bravo as well.
Yeah.
He's also the biggest floating ambassador.
He is.
I think about 75% of the people that I talk to that come in to float are found out because of Joe.
Dude, Joe's the man. Do you guys have float tanks out there? Have you tried that?
Have you tried that out yet?
No, I don't believe we do. You guys are way too advanced for us. California, that's just.
I'm sure you do out there. I'm gonna find you. I'm gonna send it to you.
I bet you do. Yeah, I bet you do. If not, there's a side business. You write articles, train jiu-jitsu. You bring the first float tank to London.
Apparently, here in the U.S., 3 years ago, there was only about 100 businesses that had, floating pods or any sort of floating capabilities, and now there's about 400.
Wow!
In like 3 years.
Can you talk a little bit about speaking about jobs, about Vice? Just knowing that you write for Vice, I'm geeking out about. How do you?
Oh, please let Lee. Yeah, go Lee.
How did that come about? That's like a really amazing gig.
Well, actually, I'm a full-time writer for another media publication in London called Centaur Media. And the Vice gig I got through a friend who's also written for Vice, and then he thought. So I was telling him about this idea about sort of training jiu-jitsu in Iran for women, and so he said that it would be a fantastic idea for this article. You should go ahead and put it together, and eventually sort of led to writing for Vice.
Have you written more stories for them? That was your first story for Vice?
That was the first story for Vice.
That's really cool. And have you written more for them then?
Or will you be?
I've got things in the pipeline, definitely.
Awesome.
Awesome. Well, Andrew, thank you so much for taking time out of training to hang out with us for an hour and calling from London. Do you want to give a shout out to anybody?
We understand what kind of sacrifice that is.
Yes, we do. Do you want to give a shout out to anybody? And please tell everybody what your social media handles are so they can start following you and read your articles and all that good stuff.
So if you want to read the article, it's broadly.vice.com. Type in Iranian women's jiu-jitsu. Twitter handle is @AndrewGJJ. And, shout out to everyone at the academy, definitely. And everyone at work, of course.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Andrew. We really appreciated you calling in today.
For sure.
I am Donna Gonzalez. You can find me at donnagonzalez.com, and all my things are on there, and you can send me messages. If anybody wants to send messages to Layla, please send them to me. I will make sure that Andrew gets them, and he will make sure that Layla gets them.
Yep.
Miss Bex.
A little train there.
Yeah.
I'm Becky Dominguez, and you can find me at, my handle is @BexandViolence on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. That's all I do. That's all I have time. That takes up enough time. I don't need any more than that.
Lee.
I'm Lee Syatt, and you can find me Lee Syatt, LeeSyatt.com, and on all of the social media it's Lee Syatt, and I'm gonna be hitting up that article and trying to find a way I can write for Vice. Like that. Like I don't like that's the coolest thing, and I know it was your first one, but there's something like Vice just sort of really fits in with like the whole jiu-jitsu world. Like it would be great if you could start doing a lot of jiu-jitsu based Vice articles. It's part of what it's on the same level I think of as podcasting. It's really cool, and it's great that Donna saw it and was able to get in touch.
Yes. Is there anything else you want to say, Andrew, before we sign off?
Train hard, train hard. So that's it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Miss Bex.
You can also find the Mat Therapy Podcast Facebook page. We also have our YouTube page. Make sure to go like and subscribe on those. On iTunes, make sure to subscribe so you can stay caught up with all the Mat Therapy talk.
Subscribe, rate, and review. It will shoot us up the charts, and then we'll be able to get more great guests on. And it's subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes, Stitcher, wherever you watch it or listen to it, and tell a friend, because it's especially this one. This is a good one, I think.
I agree.
Where you might not need a huge jiu-jitsu background. It's just share with your friend. That's all I'm trying to say. Share with your friends.
It's a good feminism story.
And make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel.
That's it. We will see you next week.
And don't forget, justfloat.com. Get 50% off of your first float. The promo code is MT50. Justfloat.com in Pasadena. If you're in town, if you're coming through, if you live here, go check it out.
Peace out, bitches. We'll see you next week.
Toodles.
And
Hello.